Nicole. All right. Well, thank you. Like Nicole said, I am Amanda. I am a singer educator. And today I'm going to show you all the kinds of things you can do to your jeans, whether it's have a hole in them or you just need to hem them or take that waist in a little bit. I'm going to help you keep them out of the trash and get them wearable again. So I'm going to jump right in because I have lots to share with you. So I'm going to switch over to my overhead camera here. So if you haven't already, there is a PDF you can download for this demo that's going to walk you through all the steps. So there's no need to take notes or anything today. You can look through that as kind of a reference. This is also recorded. So it'll be posted on Michael's YouTube in 24 to 48 hours. So the first thing I'm going to show you is we're going to talk about some hems. There are two ways that you can hem a pair of jeans. I'm going to show you the way where you make a new hem and then how you actually keep that original hem, because sometimes we really like the look of that hem. So I have a pair here that I already marked where they want to end up. So I actually put them on and folded them up and they want to end right here. So the first thing we're going to do, and I'm going to show you first putting a brand new hem in. So the first thing we want to do is actually measure how much we are going to hem these up. So this one is 2 inches that I want to shorten these. And I like to, once I get that measurement, turn my jean leg inside out so I can kind of draw on it and do whatever I need to do. And I have Bethany here with me, who's a singer educator as well. And if there are any questions that you put in the chat, she'll make sure that I'm able to answer them or she'll answer them herself. So feel free if you have any questions or comments as we go to fill us in on what's going on. Okay, so we're going to measure 2 inches here. So that's where this is going to, that's the new line here. So I'm using my ruler, marking 2 inches. And I'm going to need my seam allowance. So now I'm actually going to add an inch below that line so that I have an inch seam allowance for my jeans. And I'm just going over my line several times so you can see it here. You can use whatever marker you want to use for this. All right. So now here comes the fun. We get to cut off our jean here. So I'm just cutting on that new line, leaving myself that inch seam allowance. Okay. And I actually like, if you have any scraps, what's great is to hold on to these when you start sewing with your machine, because you can actually use this as kind of like a practice. So you can see how your tension is set. So it's actually nice to hold on to this a little bit while you're working. All right, so now that I have my inch seam allowance, I'm going to make sure my iron is warmed up. And I'm going to draw another 1/2 inch seam allowance down from my line here. Oop. So inch seam allowance, and we're doing a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch. And we're just going to fold this up. And we're going to try to recreate what's on here. And this generally is a 1/2 inch. So you can always check your jeans if there's something different and you want to replicate that. You can certainly change your measurements here, but I'm doing the standard 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch. Okay, so now that all my lines are marked, I'm going to press it up here. So I've got my ironing board, just to make sure you can see that there. And I'm just going to fold this up. And depending on what type of jean you're using, you might be able to use the edge of your ironing board to kind of get this on here. However, I purposely picked kind of a tighter fitting jean because it's actually trickier to get in your machine. And I like a challenge and to show you how tricky it can be. But if you're doing something like a wider hem, you can easily get this around your ironing board. So we're just going to take a moment and fold this up, and you're just going to work around your jeans, pressing this. And, you know, it might, depending on the material of your jean, it might not want to hold, but we just want to kind of get our line pressed in there. And you can see here, I'm using my line as a guide, just like that. All right, so now that I have that first one, again, this is a very simple hem. I'm going to just fold this over again. And you can use pins, you can use clips, whatever you prefer to get this in place. And I'm kind of just using the fold here as my guide to just feel it here as I go. Just like this. Now, if you want to take a moment and do a little press, you can, to kind of just hold that in place as you work. I find that I'm fine with pins, but I want to show you a little addition. If you've ever tried to hem jeans, you know that it gets extremely bulky in these seams here, and it's very frustrating to get through your machine. So I'm going to show you a few ways to get around that today. And then the first thing you want to do is we actually want to clip this seam allowance. So what I like to do is clip it where it's going to fold. So you can see here, there's one clip, and then I'm going to clip on the other line. So basically I'm clipping a 1/2 inch in and a 1/2 inch in. And what I'm actually going to do is fold one of my seam allowances to the side. And that way I don't have all that bulkiness on top of each other like that. So I can just close this back up, oop, and put my pin in like that. And I'm going to do it. I don't actually need to do it on this side because this one is open. So that's a really handy tip for going over here. So now that we have this pinned in place, we can take this to our machine. All right, so some settings you have on your machine. I actually already put some jean top stitching thread in my machine. So you can see here, this is a bit thicker and it's purposely made for your jeans and doing that top stitch. And it actually comes in multiple colors, which is really great. So you can actually try to match the jeans you already have and get that color right. So I have it threaded in the bobbin normally, as well as in the top of the machine normally. And I also put in a denim needle. So you can see here, these are denim needles. You could also use heavy duty needles, but I find the denim, obviously for working in denim, is the best. And these are much bigger and they're reinforced to go through that heavy fabric. I also took off the drawer of my machine. I'm using the heavy duty 6700C. This is a great machine to go through heavy fabrics like denim. And I took the drawer off so that I can get my jean around the arm. So those are the things I did already. I have my machine set on a straight stitch. And I'm going to shift where my pins are so that I can sew this directly. I'm left-handed and I tend to put pins in the wrong direction. I don't know if anyone else does that, but so easy fix. I'm just going to switch these over to the right direction. Okay, so now I have this here. And my machine's all threaded. I have it on a normal stitch. I'm actually going to raise the length of my stitches. I'm going to set this at like a 4. You'll see if you test this on a piece of denim and you do this top stitching thread with the heavy needle without raising your length there, that it feels very tight and it's going to ripple your denim. So that's one way to get started, is you just need a wider stitch. And you can see on jeans, it tends to be a bit wider, those lengths there. So I did that. Depending on your fabric, you might also need to adjust the tension. I raised my tension just a bit. That's where that piece of scrap denim comes in, where you can actually use that as a guide and kind of just test it out. Mine is already set, so I'm not going to test it because I want to show you a million things today. But definitely test out on that little piece and get your settings right. So I'm just going to start sewing here. And I'm just using the 3/8 guide on my machine as a guide as I go. If you want to use a foot or something to keep you in line, you totally can. But for today, I'm just using that as a guide. And I'm taking my pins out as I go.
Amanda, did you say what your stitch length was?
I have mine set at a 4 right now, the length.
I hope that answers Annette's question. She was asking the stitch length, and I think for denim and long and thicker fabric, sometimes a longer stitch. And
Yeah,
it
you
looks
can see
so
that
nice.
there.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
And it depends on your machine too, because every machine is different. But on this machine, I tend to like a 4. My tension's set at 7. But that might shift depending on how thick my denim is. All right, so now here we're coming up to the point where everyone gets scared. This is where, if you tried to do this before, your machine might stall on the spot. So there's 2 options. And what I want to show you here, I'm going to move my camera this way. Do you see how your foot is kind of leaning back? That's the problem. So what you can do, 2 options. Oop, I bumped my camera there. You can get what's called a hump jumper, which you can actually set this in here, and you see how this straightens this out. So this is a super great option to kind of just hold that in place as you work over that heavy spot. Now, if you don't have one, here's my little trick. Sometimes I'll just take a piece of fabric like this, and I'll lift up my foot, and I'll just like kind of shove a bit in there. It's a little more tricky, so definitely if you have a hump jumper or want to get one, they are fantastic. But you can just shove a little piece of fabric in there and keep going. And you see how easy it was for me to go over that dreaded spot. I'm going to just shift my camera back to the front here. So I hope that helps you go over. I know when I first started sewing, like dreading heavy fabrics, and you really don't. You just need the right settings on your machine, the right needle, and the ability to go over. You also don't be afraid to use your hand wheel as you go over heavier things and walk it. You can always walk your needle, and that's going to help you with heavier fabrics and bulky seams.
Amanda, we had a question about recommended thread for using for sewing denim. Are you using a specific denim thread today?
Yeah, so there's 2 brands, I believe, that are at Michael's, the Coates and Clark heavy duty top stitching thread. And then there's also a Gutermann denim thread. So both of them will look like this. And again, it comes in multiple colors. You can even get it in navy. So you can match, what you're working on. So I hope that answered the question. And I believe the link to that is in the chat or in that PDF there. So you see here, I just did a tiny little back stitch over where I was already working. And now I have this nice finished hem there, and I can just give this a good press, and this is all ready to go. So that's an easy way to go over your heavy areas like this part and hem your jeans with a quick hem. So now I want to show you, say you want to keep that original hem. So let me go over here. So here is our hem we just did. Now we're going to talk about keeping that original hem. So what that looks like when it's finished, if you can see there, it actually looks like the hem. You're just taking up your hem from the inside here and leaving your original hem. I get asked like, why do one or the other? And sometimes it's just preference. It's whatever you feel like doing and whatever you like. If you like, sometimes when we're hemming older jeans, this part is going to be very faded and we want to keep that. We don't want the look of this fresh new hem. So this is a way to keep that. It's also just sometimes a quicker and easier way if you don't want to get the top stitching thread. You can just hem it this way. So same thing, I've got it 2 inches. I will say a note about doing this type of hem. If you're hemming a lot, then you're going to want to put in a brand new hem, because the more you move this up, the tighter the bottom is to the top. So your jeans need to either be perfectly straight to use the bottom, or you need to be hemming not a ton of your jeans. This method you can hem. Yep.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I thought you were stopping.
No,
We
you're
have a
fine.
question about do these same tips that you're sharing using the denim that you're using today still apply for if you're using a pair of jeans that have stretch denim? Because we have some jeans that have a lot of stretch in them. So
Yeah.
are there different stitch settings or threads or things that you would do differently, or is it kind of the same tips?
So I tend to do the same thing. However, I adjust my tension and my thread length. So that tension is going to help, if you sew something, you don't want, sometimes when you're sewing something very stretchy on your machine, you're going to want to do a little zigzag. You don't necessarily want to zigzag on your hem. So you're still going to do this hem here with a straight stitch, but you might make the length a little bit longer and you might adjust your tension. And that's why using a scrap of the hem and kind of just playing and adjusting your tension is going to help you with that and kind of get there first. For this demo today, I'm just feeling ready to go and just doing it. But definitely throw some scraps in your machine and test it out and play with that tension, because that's going to help you not get those wavy bubbles that happen when you hem something with stretch. So this one is also 2 inches. So I'm going to turn this right side out. Oh, and I still have a pin in here. So let me take this pin out. And you can hem this whatever amount. I just have 2 inches right here. Okay, so for this one, we're going to measure our 2 inches again, just like we did. So same starting point, measure our 2 inches. And on this side, measure our 2 inches, just like that. Now, what we're going to do differently on here is, so this is going to come up to here. And if I just remove those 2 inches, my pants are going to be slightly longer than I wanted. So what I want to do is measure this, which is about a 1/2 inch, and I'm actually going to add that amount. So whatever the original hem is, you're going to add that to the top here of your line. So I'm adding this new point here. Just like this. All right. So now I can actually match this up to here, and that's going to be the length that I want. So I'm going to fold this inside like this. So I hope you can see here. And I'm matching the edge of my hem as close, not the stitching, but the actual fold, matching that up with this new higher line here. So I'm going to just work my way around and send my pins in, and you can see my pins are sitting right on that fold. And you want to definitely get the side seams matched up, because that will be noticeable if they're not matched up. So I like to do my side seams first and get my pins in, just like this. If you're someone like, I really like sewing clips as well, but sometimes they, for this situation, won't work out. You're going to want to use those pins. So you can see here, I'm just folding that. And I'm putting my pin in, and my pins are just landing on my line. Okay, so now I can head to the machine with this. All right, so what I'm going to do differently is I'm actually going to change my thread out to a normal thread. We do not need this top stitching denim thread anymore. I'm just using a normal navy or a color that is close enough to my jeans here. And same thing on the top. Whoops, sorry for the bumping of the camera. All right. And this machine has a threader on it as well if you want to use it, but I'm just so used to threading it. All right, so I have my needle threaded with my navy. I've got this folded here, and I'm just going to set this in like this. And oh, you know what? I forgot that I need my zipper foot. That is the most important part here. That's what's going to help us with this. So your zipper foot, depending on what machine you're using, might look differently. But this is the one that comes with this machine. And I'm going to take a moment just to confirm how this is sitting in here. And I want my needle to be on this side. I'm going to pop this in just like that. And I'm going to set this in here. It doesn't matter really where you start. So I'm going to set this in, and I'm going to have the edge of that foot hit that fold there. And what I actually might do is I might just move my needle over just one or 2 points by clicking the width there, so that this is in a good place and is going to hit that fold there. So now I can just sew my folds.
Amanda, can you
yeah.
explain why you chose to use the zipper foot for this?
Oh, sure. So if I were to use my normal foot here, you can see this, it would be riding awkwardly over this fold. And again, we're talking about heavy layers of denim here. This would not be even, and it would want to push this way, which means you'll get a awkward thing. So we're using the zipper foot just so we can get as close as possible to our folded fabric there. You can see here, if you hit my zipper foot is hitting this bulky part of the fabric here, I can just lift it and slide it through. I can also, again, use that hump jumper there to kind of get through.
And just to clarify, the purpose of trying to sew as close to that fold is that's the bottom of the original hem, and we want to save that original hem so that it doesn't look like we hemmed the jeans at all. This is hiding that
Exactly.
stitch right under that fold, so it doesn't even look like your jeans were ever hemmed.
Yep, exactly. And you'll see when I pop this up. And again, here we're at a point where it doesn't want to go over this. So I'm going to just, and this is one where you might want to walk it, or you might need to lift it just to go over this slightly. It all depends on how your zipper foot is shaped for that little spot there. All right. So I have that in place here. I'm going to show you what that looks like once I cut my threads. All right. So when I turn this, let me turn this right side out here. So now that this is turned right side out, you can see that you can barely see that fold there, especially if you press that nicely. So I actually want to show you a pair of jeans that I had done this way. So you can take this a step further, and you can actually cut out the excess. So you can see here, after I sewed it, I cut out the excess, and then I just did a little zigzag. So I set my normal foot in, and I used the zigzag, which is number 5 on this machine. And I just zigzagged on this edge here to kind of seal the edge. And that way my hem doesn't fall past. It's just going to sit right in there nicely. And then I just did a little hand stitch to hold this in place. And with a good press, your hem is just going to stay up, and it's going to look really nice. You get that original hem there. So that's a nice quick way to hem your jeans and keep that original hem.
Amanda, Kathy shared a great tip, and I wanted to say it out loud.
Yeah.
If you are hemming a child's pants and you know they're going to continue to grow, but they need to be a little shorter, you can do this method and not remove that bulk. And like you said, just kind of hand tack it down so it stays up into the pant. That way, if you need to let the pants out as they get taller, you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, what she's saying is I could, instead of clipping that out, I could leave all this in, and I would just do a little tack right here. And that way these could get longer as someone grows. So yeah, that's a fantastic tip. Thank you for that. All right, so that's kind of how you hem your jeans easily. So now I want to talk about holes and all kinds of things on how to fix them. I'm going to show you various sizes of holes and how to mend them. So the first one I want to show you is a very typical little hole. So I've got this little tiny hole here that happens. It's frustrating, or you'll get a little pull in your jeans. And we can actually use the button foot on our machine to fix this up here. So what I do first is I tend to clip some of these threads out of the way. Like, you want to clean up your hole. With any hole, you want to clean it up a little bit before you get started. So I'm just clipping anything that's hanging down. You can put a little piece of interfacing on here on the back of it. So if you're, I'll show you here, this is my hole. What I could do is I could just interface the back, just a little square there. For this demo, I'm just going to show you how this darning stitch works on your machine, which is a really great way to fix a tiny hole. So on this machine, it's in folder 2. So let me go, and it's stitch 19. There we go. Okay, so that is the darning stitch. Not all machines have them, but I really like this stitch on this particular machine. So what you want to do with your button foot here is you want to set it in here, and you kind of want this opening to be the size of your buttonhole. So you can actually shift this just by pulling it, and you want to get it just a little bit bigger than your hole there. You can see that. So I'm happy with that size. So I'm going to set this into my machine here. And just like doing a buttonhole, I'm going to pull this down. And now I'm going to get my jeans into the machine here. And this is where you're going to be really entertained, because this is when I'm going to start wrestling jeans in the machine, which there's not many ways of getting around it. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some ways to go about it, but a lot of times, you know, you're just wrestling your jeans. All right, so I'm setting my buttonhole foot here. The needle is right over the bottom of the button, because this is all going to move backwards. So the button is directly behind this foot here, and it's going to end up going in there. All right, so now that I have this set where I want it, I'm going to just guide it with my hands. I'm not going to push it, and I'm just going to start going. And this is actually going to go back and forth over that little hole. And you can see here, I'm letting the foot do the work. I'm keeping my hands away, and I'm just and it's actually going to tell you when it's done. So there it goes. It's already done. And that's going to close that hole up for you. Now you could actually go over this a couple times to really fill that in. Or you can, if you need to move it, say your hole is a little bit longer, you can actually just shift and do this again. But I want to show you over this hole another thing you can do. So let me pull this out.
Amanda, real quick,
Yeah.
do you measure the hole to know what size buttonhole to stitch over it?
I don't measure my hole. I just use the foot itself as a guide. So
Okay.
I just take this. Now you could totally, some button foot feet, buttonhole or feet have a measurement on here. This one does not. So what I do is I'm trying to get this in the video so you can see, is I just make sure that the hole I set in my foot here is bigger than the hole I'm mending. And that usually is a pretty good, it's going to end up, you can see here, my stitches are a bit smaller than the actual hole here. So you do want to make it a little bigger, but I use that as a base and kind of just see what's going to fit in there.
And can you show us on the machine which stitch you used?
Yeah, so let me pull this, let me pull this over here if I can get in here. So it's, if you can see this, it's folder 2, stitch 19 is the darning foot, or the darning stitch. And that is in that PDF. If you download that, that will be listed in there. Okay, so I'm gonna get this more or less into place. So yeah, you could go over this multiple times with that darning stitch, and it is nice and finished on the inside. And again, you could interface this a little bit to secure it even more. If you don't have the darning stitch, or you have a bigger kind of hole to fill, you could use your zigzag or the multi-step zigzag. So the zigzag on here is number 5 and the multi-step is number 6. And I actually have mine set to a multi stitch here. And I'm going to get this into place. And what you would do, so similar effect is I'm going to start in the front or behind it. I'm coming forward. And this is just going to take a bunch of steps over my hole there. So you can see that secures it just as much as the darning foot. So that's another option. You can also do a zigzag. So let me clip this real quick. And I'm going to use the zigzag more as we go, or both the stitches. On some machines, the multi-step doesn't go backwards, and sometimes you want the ability to go backwards. So I'm going to set mine to a zigzag. Oh, and I'm going to, hold on. There we go. Oh, mine is still, hold on. I'm going to turn my machine is still doing a multi-step, even though I set it on a zigzag. So give me a second just to, sometimes you just gotta turn it off and turn it back on again, and we'll get a good reset there. All right, I think we're fine. But I'm gonna move forward and show you a bigger hole, and I will use that zigzag in that to show you that. All right, so going back to my table here, and you can see, so this is the hole we just did. Again, if you match your thread, you can really get that hidden. And also if you, the more you clip the little threads around it, that little white won't show up. So that's a really great way to mend your jeans here. So now I have a bigger hole here. So if you can see that, this is, you know, your typical knee hole. This is kind of where it shows up, especially kids' jeans. You've got this knee hole. And you can put a patch in here of a different fabric. So what I'm going to do is, this time I did measure this hole. I actually cut a patch already, but I'll show you. So it's 2 inches across and about 1 inch here. And I'm going to clip some of these threads again, because again, the more of these white threads you get out of the way, the cleaner your patch will be. And part of my other job I do is, or what I've done in the past is, I used to do a lot of costuming, and holes is like what you're working on all the time, is mending holes. So this can get very messy, but you can also do it a very nice, clean way. So I have a piece of denim that is 1 inch bigger than my hole on either side here. I already cut this out, and I actually did a little pinking on the edge. That is up to you. You could serge it, you could do a little zigzag, just something to finish this edge, or put it in as is, and then we'll trim it away later. I also did a bit of double-sided fabric tape. So you can get some of this tape. You can see that there. This is great for zippers as well. I love this tape, but you can use this kind of to get yourself started with your patch. And I already put 3 sides on. So you're just going to set it on there to make make a patch there. And then you're going to pull off the backing. And sometimes it's tiny and tricky. And sometimes I'll just take a pin to kind of break that pattern or that paper off. Okay, so I have this little patch here, and I'm going to put this underneath and use the tape to kind of hold it in place as I get started. So again, we're turning this right side out, or wrong side out, excuse me. And here's our hole here. And so you could also do this with interfacing. I should say that. The reason I want to do a denim patch is because this hole is a little big and isn't going to meet up. So if you have a hole that actually all the edges meet up, you can use a piece of interfacing and just iron this on. Black or white, whatever you want to use, but it doesn't matter. You could just do interfacing. I'm using denim because this hole is slightly bigger, and I just kind of want to show you how to patch with denim. So I'm using that tape to just get my patch in place. And I'm really pressing it down because I'm about to turn these right side out again. And this tape is not permanent, so it will wash away. So you can't just leave it in there like that. And I might put a few pins in here just to hold it in place. You could also do a little hand basting. It's whatever you want to do for your patch here.
Amanda,
But
we have a question about at what point is a hole too big to just say it's time to toss those pants?
I would say, like, you know, a lot of times holes show up in the crotch area, and that can be pretty tricky to mend. But I'm going to show you in a bit an even bigger hole and ways to patch that. And I would say, you know, the bigger the hole, the harder it is to hide. So it's just a choice. Like these little darning holes, if you go over this a few times, no one's going to see that at all. So I think the bigger the hole, the more it's going to be noticeable, but you can actually start playing with it. And I was going to show this later, but now's a good time. So this is a pair of jeans that had quite a big hole. And I actually just put a different fun piece of fabric in it because why not? So now these are wearable, but I decided not to try to hide this big hole, to just put in fabric. Another thing you can do is there was actually a little damage in here, and I did a little embroidery over, once I darned it, over my hole to kind of cover it. So you can like get a little creative with your hole and like just kind of have fun with it. So you have your options. If it's tiny, you can hide it. If it gets bigger, like make it fun. And I know Bethany in a couple weeks is teaching a class about embroidery. So if you kind of want to see how to do this, definitely Bethany, that's in 3 weeks, mid-February. She's not answering me.
I believe so. Sorry, I couldn't get to unmute.
No, it's fine. I shouldn't put you on the spot.
No, it's fine. Yeah, we're going to be doing a denim embroidery project. So I'm going to be doing
my gosh.
embroidery on denim on the Singer SE9180, our new embroidery machine. So I know Amy has shared the list of our classes. So be sure to go sign up over on Michael's website for upcoming classes. As some of you have seen in the chat, we're doing them every week all the way through March, every Thursday at the same time. So go see what is already posted for you to sign up on Michael's website so you can get signed up for those, because we kind of rotate between different teachers.
Yeah, that's awesome. So definitely if you're interested in hiding your holes with embroidery, check out her class. So I have this like this. So my patch is in there. I've got some pins around it. It's ready to go. And now I'm just going to decide what color thread I want to use. So this navy is actually pretty good. I do have this lighter blue. Sometimes, especially in places where you have damage, it's usually in a more faded area. So you don't necessarily want to match the jeans. You want to match the actual hole. And a tip I always say is actually get a denim. You can see this denim is slightly lighter than the rest of that jean because you're using it in that faded area already. So if you're trying to hide it a little bit more, a lighter denim and a lighter thread might be better. I think I'm going to leave the navy in here and see how that goes. So I have this hole in here, and you're going to watch me now try to wrangle this into the machine. There's not a ton of tricks to do this. I will say if you can't get to your hole this way, you can actually open your jeans up. So I'm going to try to get this kind of squished in here to show you, but I'll also show you where you want to open your jeans up if you really can't get to the hole. So you can see here, I had to do some fighting to get this on the arm, but that is just part of working with a pant leg. And I'm setting this just near the hole there, kind of on the outside. And I want to get my pins out of the way. And I have my machine set on a zigzag. And this is a time where you can use that multi-step zigzag too. But I like going backwards. So I'm just kind of working this across my hole here. When I worked in theater, this was very much our most common way to fix things because it's very sturdy. If you zigzag over something multiple times, you're almost making a new fabric, like you're putting all the pieces together. So I'm just going back and forth and I'm just shifting my pants a little bit as I go to kind of stack those zigzags. You'll see once I'm done here. And then I use my back stitch to kind of go past it again. And then I'm going to go forward. And right now I'm just using the exact setting of the machine itself. So it's a 5 width and a 2 length. You could play around and make it a little tighter. So what I might do is I would leave the width because I like that it's kind of bridging everything, but I could actually tighten up that length a little bit and go over it. All right, so I think that feels pretty good. There's one little spot I want to go over again. So you can just keep pulling it out and then going forward and seeing how you feel there. Okay, so that feels pretty good. And you know what? Now looking at it, I kind of wish I did the lighter thread. So go lighter. I think if I had done it in here, it would have blended a little bit better. But at least now you can kind of see what this looks like and how secure that is. So at least I mended that hole. And again, you can either interface or denim in there. If the hole is bigger, some of your denim might show up. So that's why I always say it's a little bit better to do the denim patch rather than an interface, because it's, you know, doing a little interfacing and then having that white or black show through might show. So this is what it would look like. Again, with a lighter thread would look much better, but at least you can now see what I did here. I just went over there like that. So now what I want to show you on here to kind of finish this up, you can give this a good press. Ooh, I'm knocking things over. You can give this a good press, clip this. So this is my patch here. And what I might want to do, because I remember I said that this tape will wash away. This is going to start flapping up after a few washes. So you might want to take scissors and clip this. You could use your pinking shears. I don't have mine handy right now, but if you have pinking shears, that'll keep this from fraying. However, you did zigzag this a lot. So it shouldn't come undone because your stitches are holding everything in place. So that's the inside. That won't do any issues there. And then on the outside, you have this nice closed up hole. So there's that. And then let's talk about a big, oh, and I should say, because I wanted to show this again. So with this one, I did the same method, but instead of going back and forth over the patch, I worked across like this, across, and then back up. So I kind of just stayed on the outside there to get this really nice patch. So that if you want to do that fabric opening there, that's the way to do it. And you could do this with a matching denim too. So let's talk about big holes. So this one, I have this kind of happens where you get this big hole, and I have this just on a scrap here, this whole flap. Again, you could just put a patch under there or some interfacing and then zig across, but you can actually also get pre-made patches. So this is certainly the easiest of all the ways to fix any kind of hole. And the really cool part about these patches, they're really easy to put on. Ooh, there's a staple in here I need to get out. And they come in different colors, so you can get something that matches really closely. I'm just using what I have here. These are iron-on, so this will stick to your fabric. It's already cut in a great shape. These are actually perfect for knees. They are a great knee shape. You can just press this over here. If you want to clean up your areas, you can a little bit, but you'll just set this on here and you can iron it in place. You can also cut these to be smaller. So if you want to use it as a patch, a smaller patch on the knee, you can totally do that. So these patches are awesome just to have around, especially in like kids' clothes where you don't care if the hole is as noticeable. This is actually a fantastic way to reinforce a knee, is these patches.
I was
So
just about to say that, Amanda, as a mom of a boy, I would put
Yep.
these patches on the inside of the pants
Yes.
behind the knee to reinforce it so that his pants would last longer because he
Yep.
just played so hard at school.
Exactly. They are great for reinforcing or for patching. So I just warmed up my fabric there. I'm going to put this in place, and you're going to put it on for about 45 seconds here just to seal it in there. And it's quick. It goes right on. I don't even know if this was 45 seconds. I wasn't counting because I'm talking. And you can either get on this back here and press this. Like Bethany said, if this is the inside, you could put the patch here and really reinforce that knee there. These patches are great. And then you have this denim patch that stays with your fabric, and these are washable. So that's really super, of all the ways to mend something, this is certainly the easiest. And if you want, you could go over with the zigzag. So this is a piece that I actually went over the edge just to reinforce it even more. It is a little more tricky to do that on a knee. What you would have to do is you'd actually have to open up your jean here. So you saw me, I talked about when I was shoving this onto the machine, it's a little tricky to get this on the leg. Another thing you could do is that you could actually open up your jean here, because this is just the seam. You don't want to do the seam that has the flat top stitching, because that's going to be tricky to put together. But you can actually open this jean seam, and then you're able to get into the machine that way. And then all you do is you turn your jeans inside out and sew that side seam like you would sew a normal side seam. So you have options of getting your patches all over your jeans. Are there any other questions about hole mending before I move on to the last little thing I wanted to show you that you can do to your jeans for a slightly better fit?
Not really. Can you hold up real quick the patch that had the fabric behind it, the flower fabric? Because we had someone say that their grandkids' pants get really big holes and asked if they could add just a fun fabric behind it. So I wanted her to be able to see that again.
Yeah, so this is like my favorite way. Like, why try to hide it? Just embrace it and have a good time about it. That's why on these, like I put the flower, I put the hole, like these are really fun now. You could even put, you know, like you could change out a pocket to be fabric, like just embrace it. But this one, again, I put it on, I put the tape on this piece of fabric, put it on the inside, and then I just used a zigzag stitch in a matching color to go around my patch and just secure it in place. And this is completely washable. The zigzag is really going to hold it in place, so adds a little more life and fun to your jeans. So the last thing I want to show you is if you have a waist that is a little big, you can certainly take all this apart and put it back together, and that's a lot of work. But there is a way to just cinch this in a little bit. And when you see it, this is awesome. Again, we're talking about kids' jeans. Awesome for kids' jeans because you can actually remove this alteration. So with this pair of jeans here, I want to take it in this amount. So I put these on and I pinned, just kind of pinched in what needed to come in. And I'm going to measure this here. Lost my ruler. I'm going to go find it, but I'm going to take, and I'm going to use a bright chalk so you can kind of see what I'm doing. This is not showing up well, but all right. So I'm marking where this is meeting up, where my pin is. I'm just going to make this a little bit clearer for you. So you can all see that, those two lines there. All right. Found my ruler. Okay, so this is about 3 inches that I want to take this in. So what I'm going to do is measure out, and you could do, you know, you can double this. So I could do a whole 3 inches on either side, but I'm going to do about 2 inches and just pull my elastic pretty tight here. So I'm adding 2 inches to my line here, just like that. So now I have, this is 7 inches. I started with 3 coming in. So I have my lines drawn here, and this is where you're gonna get your seam ripper out. And we're gonna actually open the outside inner waistband. So I'm gonna just stick my seam ripper in there, and I don't wanna go through the right side of the jeans. I just wanna go through this back to open this up a little bit. All right, so I'm just putting in a hole in there. This side stays the way it is. Same thing on this side. Popping a hole, just like that. Now, generally, you want to get a piece of elastic. Oh, I think I pushed my piece of elastic off. Hold on 1 second.
It's under your ironing board. I can see.
Is it? Luckily, my elastic is in a drawer right underneath me, so I was able to grab more.
Perfect. I was gonna say, Amy said, you know, this is a great method for ladies with bigger hips but a smaller waist, and they need to take in their pants. I also suggested that I used to do this for my son's pants. When we would buy some pants, they didn't have the built-in elastic. Not all kids' pants do, to make them adjustable. And so this is a great method for kids' pants as well.
Yeah, exactly. So what I just did is I have this piece of elastic, and this waistband is about 1 inch. So I actually am using 3/4 of an inch elastic. If your waistband's a little thicker, you might want to use inch elastic. But what I just did here is I measured the original amount, and then I added about 1/2 inch, and that's just going to be my seam allowance as I pull this in like here. So what I'm going to do first, and I'm going to leave mine long to start. That's why I put a little marker, because I like to have something to pull. So you can use a safety pin. You can see that. And I'm just going to put that on my elastic like here, just like you were, you know, if you've ever made a pair of elastic waistband pants, or, you know, we've all had that where your sweatpants drawstring comes out. Using a safety pin to get this through is a really handy trick. So I'm just sliding my elastic through here till it pops out on this side. And then, oop, you want a little bit sticking out. I pulled it too far. So I want it peeking out here just about 1/4 of an inch, whatever I need it to be. And I'm going to put a pin in here just like that. All right. And then I'm going to take this to my sewing machine. All right. So I still have my machine set to a zigzag that I had before. And I'm going to just tighten up my length a little bit. So right now I have the width set at 5 and my length at 1.5. And I'm just going to set this in the machine. And I'm going to zigzag over. What I'm zigging over is the elastic as well as my cut hole. So I'm almost mending the hole I made as I insert that elastic. So you can see here, I just zigged over that. And now that is all secure in there. And I'm going to just clip my threads. And you saw I went forward and then I went back. So that's really nice. And you will see in a moment. This is what it looks like on there. So you can barely see that if you, again, match your thread to your jeans. So now that I have this side done and I have this tail, I can actually pull my tail until I get it to where I want it, which there's my little marking. So I'm going to line that up with my hole here. And I'm going to set a pin in here. And this is a little tricky. The second one is a little harder because the elastic and the jeans are fighting you a little bit. So I like to get everything set up and kind of hold it in place, get that pin out. And once I feel good about it, then I can zig over everything. All right. So now that one is also secure. All right, and then I'm just going to clip off my elastic here, and we can go back so I can show this to you a little bit better. So now I have my elastic waist chains. So this is really great. Again, Bethany said, If you just need to, if you have bigger hips and you need to cinch in that waist there, you can do this and with a belt over it. Because again, it's right now it's wrinkly, but once it's on your body, it's going to sit a little flatter. And if you put a belt over it, no one's going to see it. It's going to hug you really nicely and it won't gape. And then if it's kids jeans, again, if you buy a size that's a little too big, you can do this trick to kind of cinch that in so your kids' pants don't fall down. And then you can actually pop this open and remove the elastic and the pants will be back to its original size. So that's a really great way to kind of have like grow with me jeans, to kind of reuse those jeans and have them last a little bit longer. So I think that is actually everything. I talked about all the patches, the waist elastic. I'm going to just check any comments and switch over back to me so I can.
Yes, we have some questions. I specifically screenshotted them and saved them for the end because they were a little off topic of what we were talking about at the moment, but I would, if you have time, to just kind of quickly answer some of these. So we had a question about any hints on tapering jeans at the side seams.
Okay, well, let me see.
You don't have to show, but if you've just got a quick little tip
Yeah.
or demonstration that you can share, that would be great.
So what I will say is, if your jeans, so the outer hem generally is just a normal side seam like this. So you can actually taper in this a little bit. However, if you're going to go further than like a 1/2 inch, you want to do it on the inside as well, because if not, it's going to pull too much. So what you can do, it's not fun, but you can pop out these top stitches here, and then you'll have just 2 seams on either side. So if you remove that top stitch that's holding this seam down, remove that, unpick it, you'll have 2 side seams on your jeans, and you can fit them and you can re-sew them just with regular thread to taper your jeans. And then you can actually use that trick I showed you with the top stitching thread, and go over it again and just re-put in your top stitch there. So you can totally do it. This seam is not fun, but that's the way I would suggest to taper your jeans.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
then we had another question about, can you give some tips on mending a hole that is in the crotch area, or would you even recommend using a patch to mend holes or reinforce that area?
So I would say the iron-on patches can get a little stiff. So in a crotch area, I wouldn't use those in there. But I would say interfacing is your friend. And you could just zigzag a lot. And again, you're going to go with a lighter color because it's already going to be faded. So you want to match that fade and you can zigzag over. You can also use make a patch out of denim and kind of place that in place and kind of just zigzag over. If you take your time and, do really nice zigzag stitches, they're not going to be noticeable in the crotch to have that kind of underneath you. So match your thread and get that little patch in there. And I would say also with a crotch, because that fabric usually gets a little thinner and more worn, that you want to make the patch bigger than the hole. Like on a lot of these that I was showing you, I zigzagged kind of just the edge of that just to catch the denim there. You want to actually move out a little bit and really zigzag past the hole, because that fabric is already disintegrating if there's holes there. So that'll be a way to kind of, give it a little bit more reinforcement and a little bit more sturdiness so you can wear it a bit more. I hope that answers the question.
Great answer. Great answer. And then the last thing, we had this question a couple of times, so I'll mention it since we have a few more minutes. If someone was hemming bell bottoms, is there anything different that you would do? And I guess it kind of maybe depends on how much you need to hem it, right?
Yeah, so these are actually kind of bell bottomy, these ones here that I did, and I did both styles of hems. So I have the one here that was the fake leaving the original hem there, and then the new hem. What I will say is you're limited on how much you can use this original hem, because if you move this up, I'm trying my best to show you. If I move this here, the measurement over here is a lot smaller than here. So I would say if you're hemming just a little bit of your bell bottom, you can totally use this original hem trick to kind of just, if you're taking an inch or two. If you really need to go more than that, then I would put a whole new hem in there for those bell bottoms. So I hope that answers it. But
And obviously
keeping the original hem is limited to the shape of the jean. If they're straight, you can just keep going. If they're shaped, you're going to have some issues there.
That's what I kind of said in the chat, is the more you take off, the more it's going to make that bell bottom not be so wide. So it's totally preference there.
But some men's jeans and some kids jeans, like they are very straight tubes. So you can actually, you're just going to have to measure where you want the new hem and how much hem you actually have, and just measure the holes there, like the circumference of what you've got, that hem, and see if you can move it up. If not, pop a new hem in there. I feel like if you take your time and you have the right thread, it looks really nice. Yeah.
All right. Well, all of the feedback has been amazing. Thank you all for joining. They've been singing your praises, Amanda, for such a wonderful service. So yeah, I wanted to share because I know you're not looking at the chat. But in the chat that if you do use any of these tips from our class today, and you share it on social media, to use the hashtags Make It With Michael's classes, or Singer Sewing, because we'd love to see your successful mending and patching.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for joining me. I'm glad to hear you learned things and you can give new life to your jeans. You don't have to throw them out. So thank you everyone.